заняты! Пробейте! Все живы! Пробейте! Хорошо зацепили! Был танк и нет танка!
Лови! Получи!
Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome to Men of War Arena. So, this game I only discovered a couple of weeks ago thanks to some of you guys down in the comments, and I'm really glad you pointed it out because I've been really enjoying it so far. Obviously, some of you will be familiar with the Men of War games. I think it was Faces of War before Men of War. It's obviously been a long-term single-player game, certainly one that I've dabbled in the past, but not one that I've really featured on the channel. But this is going to be their sort of stab at a multiplayer version of this game, and it's really kind of awesome. So it's going to work a little bit like Total War Arena. I mean, and I hesitate to use that because obviously we're in tanks, not Romans, but it does have that sort of feel about it. So for example, if we hop over to the technology tree, now this will start to feel a little bit more familiar. Obviously you start down here in sort of tier 1 and 2, and basically you have the option to progress through the various different upgrades and unlock different infantry, different guns. You know, obviously we're starting off with little 45mm anti-tank guns, and we can start to get off to sort of some of the more divisional field guns and bigger guns. There's artillery, there's mortars, anti-aircraft guns, mobile artillery, you know, AA guns on trucks, big guns on trucks, planes, lots of different infantry, and then of course we've got all the tanks and various stuff as well as even a little line of armoured cars. So currently, just in the closed beta we are in at the moment, we've got both the Russians and the Germans, and both have sort of got pretty well developed tech trees. Obviously, many of the classic German vehicles that we'll all recognise, definitely like a good old Vesp. And yeah, and basically you can unlock these and take these into battle with you. So if you want to kind of see then how this works, you have to go over to your troop section. Let's go back to the Russians because these who we've been playing with. And you basically then initially have 3 regiments to choose from, either tanks, infantry or artillery. And for more silver later on, you can unlock different regiments, you know, medium tanks, heavy tanks, assault infantry, and various sort of mixed platoons which enable you to take sort of a mix of artillery and tanks, etc, etc. If we take a look at this tank regiment and go into its echelons, you will see that we have 3 starting echelons, and you have 200 points to spend in each one. And when you first load into a battle, it will start in echelon 1, and you can bring in these type of units. So for example, I've got 2 T-28s, 10 riflemen, a mortar, and a T-40 with the sort of upgraded 20mm. This is really quite a nice little thing. It just sprays 20mm rounds absolutely everywhere. And this makes sort of up my first echelon. But you've also got a limit of 15 combat points. For example, this T-28 costs me 8. So I can bring one of them in and say 5 infantry, and that'll be 13 points. So I'll only have 2 points left. So my mortar is 3, so I couldn't bring that, and the T-40 I think is 4 points, so I couldn't bring that. So I could bring a T-28 and a rifleman. Then when my T-28 gets killed, if it gets killed, I could then bring in, say, a mortar or my T-40. And you can see, you know, so it's keeping you, so it's limiting you to this initial point. So if someone's more researched and say got a better starting tank, it might cost them more points to bring that in. So even though they'll be bringing in a better tank, they can't bring as many of them into combat. And then over time, the other echelons sort of unlock and bring in more vehicles. As we get down, the best thing I've got at the moment is this T-34-76. Obviously not an amazing gun, but quite nicely armoured. I'm trying to currently save up my silver a little bit more because I want to buy this KV-1 we've got over here, because KV-1, lots of armour, should hopefully be a solid little tank we could put in there. We could put this T-35 in, but knowing from history how truly woeful they actually were in real life, I'm not sure it's something I really want in my roster. Anyway, let's hop into a battle and we can show you a little bit more about how some of this stuff actually works. Once you get into the actual battle, I generally found the controls to be pretty nice, pretty sort of intuitive. It took me sort of 5 or so battles to kind of get used to what everything was up to, but once you get the hang of it, sort of things seem quite nice. So right at the start, you get this sort of deployment phase. You can see what I mean about echelons. I've only got access to my first echelon, and I got 15 command points. So that enabled me to get my T-28 and my infantry squad, and I've got 2 points spare, but I've got nothing that fits that 2 points. Perhaps something I should be working on in that initial echelon deployment is being able to fit a 2-point unit in, so I could sort of bring 3 things rather than just 2.
Считайте выполнено.
But then the game kicks off. It's now, you know, all a free-for-all, and you start a little bit back from the front line. And you can see the front line here is this sort of red and blue line, obviously the red being the enemy side and the blue being your side. And one important thing to note is only infantry can capture ground. So you can have all the tanks in the world, but you will lose if you only bring tanks, because infantry are the only ones who can push that line forwards. It's also worth pointing out that infantry get a lot better visibility. Tanks' visibility is pretty well limited to the direction of that the turret is pointing. So basically, you know, if you just drive a tank forward without infantry support, then it's pretty vulnerable to being taken out. See, so we immediately run into some enemy infantry, engage an enemy rifleman, and we really start to take quite a lot of heavy fire. A bit more than I was expecting, so I was thinking, right, well, let's pull back. There's obviously an enemy player defending this spot. Because there's no real lane deployment on the map, you can see it's quite a wide map. I seem to naturally deploy on this side, no real reason for it. I just kind of like not having a, you know, I like having a firm edge to the map. Kind of works nicely for me. And then we get a T-28 come through, and I'm a bit slow to respond, so I've already been hit. Lost a few crew, I think a gun dot taken out. I then go and donk my shot and miss. We get hit again, my gunner gets killed. So things are looking pretty bad for me. I'm trying to engage this while thinking about seeing if I can use my infantry. We do actually manage to land a hit, which is good. And I'm trying to push my infantry up to maybe see if I can get some anti-tank grenades. But I've come through a far too open piece of ground, and look at that, what a terrible start. And that really wasn't the start to the game I was going for. And there goes my T-28, knocked my hull out, sets fire, ammunition load starts to go off, and yeah, in trouble. So I'm immediately calling for reinforcements now, bringing up another T-28 because I have 2 in my first echelon. And then I'll probably, once that's on cooldown, I'll start to think about bringing up some more infantry as well, because we've got to deal with that enemy tank. And you can see the enemy infantry are starting to push up now and starting to push that front line back against us. And you can see on the top score, you know, it's the first of 2,500, and you get points basically for killing enemy units and capturing land. So by them being able to capture and push more land, that's certainly to their benefit. So we're pushing with my T-28. I see them a little bit more at range this time. The enemy sort of throws his first shot away, which is good for us, and starts sort of this prolonged duel now where we're trying to take it out. I managed to ricochet a shell off his front turret, but because I think we've got better visibility on him than he has on us, it's a little bit easier for us to get some early hits. It appears we don't get any kills. It's really annoying. And you see, I'm now in direct control mode. So I can just tell my tank to engage this enemy tank, or I can manually control it like I am there. And by doing that, I was able to aim that little bit lower down to try and get that hull breakthrough, and it blew through and hit the ammunition and set the hull to the flame, which is exactly what we want at this stage of the battle. So as the battle's progressing, I actually managed to kind of make this little sort of salient or little bulge in the enemy lines as we managed to advance. But then, horror of horrors, an enemy KV-1 appears. So this is someone who's obviously got access to higher tier equipment. If you can remember kind of on the tech tree, you know, the KV-1's a bit further down, something I'd like to unlock, but I haven't got there yet. You can see it sort of on that second point of the tech tree. And I know I can't penetrate this frontally with my T-28. I just go a bit ham really and rush. You can see I'm trying to circle him. T-28 not really the tank to be doing this with. And I thought we were going to get round behind him, but he manages to track us with this gun and he gets a full 76mm round through the front. And yeah, we are done for. I realise my opponent's T-40 with its 20mm, I mean that's never going to go through the front of that, you know, in any way, shape or form. So I'm like, run away! Quickly trying to get this guy to turn around and get back. I was trying to sort of do a firing retreat, and then I just thought, you know, just solid, just run, get out as quick as you can. As we're bringing some infantry up as well. Because yeah, I like that little T-40, and I don't think even from the rear he would be able to penetrate that KV-1, because it's a really heavily armoured enemy tank. Although, just I like here that good sort of starting to get the hang of some of the hotkeys. You know, I like how I can bring a unit back, quickly flick the hotkey, get it to face the direction I want. That's what I mean when I said earlier that the UI is quite nice to use. And I'm Walter's still popping away at the back, shooting at targets as they become available. So I'm a bit worried about that KV-1. I've got to deal with it, but I don't know what I'm going to deal with it with. I have nothing that can really penetrate it from the front. Only if I can get on the side of it with a tank, or if I can get close to it with infantry. And that's kind of what I was thinking. What about anti-tank grenades? But how do you get close to it? But if you remember what I said earlier, all tanks, if they don't have infantry support, become very vulnerable because they have very limited visibility. So I've been working on taking out the enemy infantry around him. And then I'm using my own wreck, you know, that tier 28 I charged earlier, to try and get close to this enemy tank while keeping my guys not visible. And it works, so we're able to get really close. And now we're able to throw my anti-tank grenades over my own wreck. First couple don't tend to penetrate, but the third one, it goes through, detonates the ammo load, and kaboom, we take out that KV-1. That was a real big win for us, because that enabled me to then push forward, because we dealt with a really basically quite an expensive enemy unit. And yeah, because that's really the infantry that's the only thing I had to deal with that. And that is one of the the problems I guess I've faced with the game, is that the matchmaking can be a little bit brutal sometimes, because you come up against some higher tier stuff like that, and I don't really have anything that can currently penetrate it. So we're a little bit later on in the battle now, but if you remember at the start I said, you know, infantry are one of the most important things, because they're the only ones who can take land. And that's why, even though I've not got that far, because I've not got a lot of technology points, I just go down this little tangent with this little 20mm T40. That's why I love it so much, because it's a brilliant anti-tank, anti-infantry weapon. So I sort of managed to line myself parallel up with this enemy trench, and just throw all these 20mm rounds down this trench, and we really start to slowly clear it out. And these are quite a lot of points worth of infantry we're actually managing to kill. They even call in a bomber on us, but they managed to miss. It just damaged our engine slightly, but not enough to knock it out. And yeah, we're really just able to clear up this whole trench worth of infantry for a really low point tank, you know, really what is considered genuinely to be a really crap tank. He's able to do really well. Because that 20mm is just such a good little weapon. And yeah, able to take out all those enemy infantry, and they're enemy infantry who would have definitely pushed this enemy pocket wider and captured them a lot more land. And ultimately, taking out enemy infantry, you know, is one of the most important things, because it's the infantry who claim land. And you see now our allies are able to push in, and we're able to say, well, I'm to move forward to take this trench, and we're able to start to claim more ground again. Unfortunately, towards the end of the battle, things start to turn against us. Even though we've had a real stonking game for us, it's just not really panning out. The enemy managed to turn up with a KV-1S, a much higher tier tank, and they were able to get sort of some anti-tank rocket launcher infantry on the hillside above me, because most of my infantry are dead, and they're able to get a round down and basically blow the turret off my T-34. And this is the best thing or really tank I've got at the moment, this T-34, and I've only got one of them. I'm trying to get it repaired with the gun crew, but you know, we've got infantry pushing in on us. That KV-1S is still throwing rounds at the front of us. Our armour's trying to hold up, but we've got infantry coming as well, and they're able to get so close and, you know, throw anti-tank grenades at us, and finally just absolutely eviscerate my poor little T-34. And that really set the tone for me then. I'm running out of tanks. I mean, trying to deal with that KV-1S becomes a real problem for me, but it's such a heavily armoured tank with a really nice gun as well, which makes it really hard to deal with, trying to reman my my little heavy mortar to try and provide a little bit of support. And end up basically fighting a rearguard action for the rest of the game to try and hold the sort of the enemy back. But you can see they've already managed to push this sort of salient in the centre, which has gained them quite a bit of a land, although our team is on kind of the left side of the map, pushing a bit harder. Yeah, ultimately things just slowly go from bad to worse from here as we kind of get pushed harder and harder towards the end of the game. So unfortunately, obviously the battle ended in defeat. We were driven back, but we actually did best on our team, and we did put up a pretty decent fight. We managed to do a fair bit of damage with our T-28s. You know, held up pretty well for us, as well as our little mortar. I really like this guy, because you just stick him at the back and kind of forget about him, and it just shells anything that basically comes into your visibility. There's some kind of a nice little artillery piece, although you do have to kind of be a bit careful for sort of counter battery fire, particularly if you're coming up against an experienced artillery player. We did pretty well with our T-40. It's really one of my favourite tanks, even though it's not necessarily all that useful a lot of the time. You know, like we saw with that trench situation, makes it a really fun tank to take into battle. It gives you a bit of an idea of what battles are like. You know, this battle lasted 32 minutes, so it kind of gives you an idea of the sort of time frame of an average battle. We got 2,000 gold, but we did have to spend 799 in repairs, so we're making about 1,200 profit. And obviously, various units are earning themselves experience. For example, we've got 460 from the T-28, and that obviously reflects in the technology tree. Obviously not in the German one, because we were playing as the Russians. As you see, my T-28 now has 1,200 experience on it. So I could combine this with free experience to get myself T-34-76, because I've got 520 free experience. But I'll probably just play a few more games, and I think my T-28 will probably build up enough base experience to unlock this T-34-76. And maybe we can throw one or two of these into the mid tier, rather than only having to wait for the end tier, because this is a tank I really need to get access to. I have actually, in another world, actually unlocked the KV-1 now on the technology tree. but the problem is I just don't have the silver required to make use of it yet. If we go into the echelons, as I was saying sort of earlier, you know, I could put the KV1 in, but it's 19,200 silver for one, and I've only got 12,000 currently, so I need to be saving up a bit more silver first. Obviously, when I do that and put that in, you know, that'll give me one available. If I wanted to then increase that quantity, you know, to 2 KV2s, I'd have to pay another 19,200 to be able to use that. But equally, I could take them out of this echelon, you know, select a different troop, and they would be available to use, you know, in the heavier tank assault regiment later on down the line. So it does kind of give you a fair bit of options in that sense. But anyway, hopefully this has given you kind of a bit of an interesting overview of kind of what the game is all about. Yeah, it's really quite fun. I've genuinely enjoyed it so far. I feel it's quite an intuitive UI in game. I think the matchmaking maybe is probably a lot worse because we're in closed beta at the moment, so there's pretty limited numbers of players. But yeah, you've got to be a little, I think it needs maybe a little bit of work when you're coming up against KV1. This is like a T26. Not a lot I can do about that, really. I'm a bit limited, and once I've lost that T34, I'm then pretty much done for. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a load more Men of War Arena content. If it is something you like, you know, do let me know in the comments, because, you know, it's hard to know if this is an enjoyable video. I would like to produce more content on this game, but it depends what you guys think. So do like it and do let me know what you think. And I shall see you guys all, hopefully, on the next Men of War video.